I've been driving for Uber Eats for almost 2 years now, trying to make ends meet while going to college. Most nights are pretty routine. Pick up food, drop it off, collect the tip, repeat. But what happened on a foggy Tuesday night in October changed everything I thought I knew about this job. It was around 11:30 p.m. when I got the ping. The order was from a 24-hour diner called Murphy's. Nothing fancy, just burgers and fries. The delivery address was way out on the edge of town, in one of those neighborhoods where the houses are spread far apart and the streetlights are more like suggestions than actual illumination. The customer had left specific instructions. House is hard to find. Look for the red mailbox with the broken door. Don't ring the bell, just knock 3 times and wait. I should have known something was off right there, but the order was worth $45 with tip, and I needed the money for textbooks. So I loaded up the bag and started driving toward the address. The deeper I got into this neighborhood, the weirder it felt. The fog was rolling in thick, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Most of the houses were dark, with overgrown yards and that abandoned look that makes you wonder if anyone actually lives there anymore. My GPS kept losing signal, cutting in and out like something was interfering with it. After 20 minutes of driving in circles, I finally found the red mailbox. It was exactly like the customer described, old, rusted, with a door hanging off its hinges. The house behind it was a 2-story Victorian that looked like it hadn't been painted since the 1980s. Half the shutters were missing, and what was left of the front porch was sagging like it might collapse at any moment. I grabbed the food and walked up the cracked driveway. There were no cars in sight, which struck me as odd. How do you order food delivery if you don't have a way to get around? But I delivered to plenty of people who didn't drive, so I didn't think too much about it. The front porch creaked under my weight as I approached the door. I could see light flickering inside. Not electric light, but the warm, dancing glow of candles or a fireplace. I knocked 3 times, just like the instructions said, and waited. Nothing happened for about 30 seconds. Then I heard footsteps inside, slow and deliberate, like someone was having trouble walking. The steps got closer to the door, then stopped. I waited another minute, then knocked again. "Just a minute," called a woman's voice from inside. She sounded old, maybe in her 70s or 80s, with that shaky quality that comes with age. Finally, the door opened, but only about 6 inches. A woman's face appeared in the gap, pale, deeply wrinkled, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her eyes were strange, almost completely white, like she had severe cataracts. "You brought the food," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am. 1 burger combo and a chocolate shake from Murphy's." She reached out with a thin, bony hand and took the bag from me. But instead of closing the door, she just stood there, staring at me with those cloudy white eyes. "You look hungry," she said finally. "I'm fine, thank you. That'll be $45. She disappeared into the house for a moment, then came back with exact change. But as she handed me the money, her fingers wrapped around my wrist like a vice. "You should stay for dinner," she said, and her voice had changed completely. It was deeper now, more masculine, like a man's voice coming from her throat. I tried to pull away, but her grip was impossibly strong for someone her age. "I really need to get going, ma'am. I have other deliveries to make." She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Other deliveries? But you're the delivery now." That's when I noticed the smell coming from inside the house. It was sweet and rotten, like meat that had been sitting out in the sun for days, mixed with incense and something else, something chemical and sharp. "Let go of me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her grip tightened, and I could feel her fingernails digging into my skin. "You can't leave yet. They're waiting for you." "Who's waiting?" She opened the door wider, and I could see into the house now. The living room was lit by dozens of candles placed on every surface, tables, shelves, even the floor. And sitting around the room were people, at least 6 or 7 of them, all perfectly still, all staring at the door. But something was wrong with them. They were too pale, too quiet. Some of them were sitting in positions that looked uncomfortable, like they'd been arranged rather than choosing their seats. And none of them were blinking. "Come in," the old woman said, pulling harder on my wrist. "Join us for dinner. We've been waiting so long for fresh meat." I yanked my arm away with everything I had, and her fingernails left deep scratches as I broke free. I turned and ran toward my car, not looking back until I was safely inside with the doors locked. As I started the engine, I glanced back at the house. The old woman was standing in the doorway, no longer looking frail or weak. She was standing perfectly straight, and even from that distance, I could see she was smiling. The people in the living room had all turned to look out the window at me, their movements jerky and unnatural. I floored it out of there, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. It wasn't until I was back on the main road that I realized I was bleeding. The scratches on my wrist were deeper than I thought, and they burned like she dipped their nails in acid. When I got home, I looked up the address I delivered to. According to the county records, the house had been abandoned since 2018, when the last owner died. Eleanor Vasquez, age 78, found dead in her living room after neighbors complained about the smell. But here's the part that really freaked me out. According to the police report, she wasn't alone when they found her. There were 6 other bodies in the house, all in various states of decomposition. The official cause of death for all of them was starvation and dehydration, but the report noted that there were signs of cannibalism. The investigation revealed that Eleanor had been luring people to her house for months before she died, possibly years. Delivery drivers, salespeople, anyone who came to her door alone. She'd drug them and keep them as prisoners, feeding them just enough to keep them alive while she slowly consumed the weaker ones. The case was closed when Eleanor died, but the house was never properly cleaned or demolished. It just sat there, abandoned and forgotten. I tried calling the number that placed the order, but it was disconnected. I reported it to Uber Eats, but they said there was no record of any order being placed to that address that night. According to their system, I hadn't made any deliveries after 10 p.m. I quit driving for Uber Eats the next day. I couldn't handle the thought of going to another strange house, never knowing what might be waiting for me on the other side of the door. I got a job at a coffee shop where I don't have to leave the building. But sometimes, late at night when I'm trying to sleep, I think about those people sitting in that living room. How long had they been there? Were they already dead when I saw them? Or were they still alive, trapped and starving, watching me through the window as I drove away? The scratches on my wrist took weeks to heal, and they left permanent scars. Sometimes I catch myself staring at them, remembering that night, wondering if I really escaped, or if I'm still there somehow, sitting in that candlelit room, waiting for the next delivery driver to knock 3 times on the door.
Story 2.
The customer who collected drivers. Working for Uber Eats seemed like easy money when I started 6 months ago. Drive around, listen to music, meet different people. What could go wrong? I should have known better. Nothing good happens after midnight in this city. It was a Saturday night in November, and I was trying to hit my weekly goal before calling it quits. The bars were closing, which meant drunk people ordering way too much food, and drunk people tip well. I was having a good night until I got the order that changed everything. The ping came in around 1:15 a.m. from a place called Tony's 24-Hour Pizza. The order was huge: 3 large pizzas, a dozen wings, garlic bread, 2-liter sodas, almost $120 worth of food. The delivery address was in the warehouse district, not exactly residential, but some people live in converted lofts down there. The customer had left a note: apartment 3B, elevator is broken, use the stairs. Ring the doorbell twice, then wait. Building door will be unlocked. I should have been suspicious about the unlocked building door, but it was late and I was tired. I just wanted to make the delivery and go home. The building was an old brick warehouse that had been partially converted into apartments. The first floor was still commercial space, empty storefronts with soap-covered windows. The upper floors had been divided into lofts, but it didn't look like many people actually lived there. Most of the windows were dark. I found the entrance around the side of the building. Just like the note said, the door was unlocked. The lobby was barely lit by a single buzzing fluorescent light that made everything look sickly green. There was no elevator in sight, just a narrow staircase that disappeared into darkness above. I climbed to the 3rd floor, carrying the bags of food and trying not to think about how creepy this place was. The hallway was long and narrow, with doors on both sides. Most of them didn't have numbers, but I found 3B at the far end. I rang the doorbell twice, like the instructions said, then waited. I could hear movement inside, footsteps, maybe furniture being moved around. After about 2 minutes, the door opened. The man who answered was probably in his 40s, average height, wearing a stained t-shirt and jeans. Nothing particularly memorable about him, except his eyes. They were too bright, too interested, like he was excited about something. "Pizza delivery," I said, holding up the bags. "Perfect timing," he said, opening the door wider. "Come on in, just set it on the kitchen counter." I hesitated. I usually don't go inside customers' apartments, but it was cold outside, and he seemed harmless enough. Plus, with an order this big, I was hoping for a decent tip. The apartment was bigger than I'd expected, but it was also completely empty. No furniture, no decorations, nothing on the walls, just bare floors and empty rooms. The only light came from a single bulb hanging from the ceiling in what I assumed was the kitchen area. "Just set it anywhere," the man said, closing the door behind me. I put the bags down and turned around, expecting him to pay me. Instead, he was standing by the door with his arms crossed, blocking my exit. "So," he said, "how long have you been driving for Uber Eats?" "About 6 months," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "That'll be $123.50. He ignored the money part. "You like the job? Meet a lot of interesting people?" "It's okay. Look, I really need to get going. I have other deliveries waiting." He smiled, and that's when I noticed his teeth. They were filed to points like animal fangs. "No, you don't," he said. "I checked the app. This is your last delivery of the night." My blood went cold. How did he know about the app? How did he know this was my last delivery? "I need you to pay for the food," I said, backing away from him. "Oh, I'll pay," he said, reaching into his pocket. But instead of pulling out money, he pulled out a phone. My phone, the one that had been in my jacket pocket just a minute ago. "When you came in," he said, scrolling through it. "Jake Morrison, age 22, student at City College, lives at 1247 Oak Street, apartment 2A. Parents are David and Linda Morrison. They live in Millbrook. Sister Emma goes to Westfield High School. I lunged for the door, but he was faster. He grabbed my arm and twisted it behind my back so hard I thought he was going to break it. "Let me go," I shouted, but he just laughed. "You're not the first driver I've had over," he said, forcing me away from the door. "In fact, you're number 7. Would you like to meet the others?" He pushed me toward a door I hadn't noticed before. It was painted the same color as the walls, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. He opened it, and I could see stairs leading down to what must have been a basement. The smell that came up from below was indescribable. Rot, filth, human waste, and something else, something sweet and chemical that made my stomach turn. "Go ahead," he said, pushing me toward the stairs. "They're excited to meet you." I could hear sounds from below now, moaning, crying, someone calling for help in a weak voice. There were people down there, people who were still alive. "Please," I said, "I have a family. People will be looking for me." "No, they won't," he said, showing me my phone again. "I already sent a text to your roommates saying you're staying at a friend's place tonight, and I'll send another one tomorrow saying you're sick. By the time anyone gets worried, it'll be too late." He shoved me down the first few steps, and I stumbled but managed to catch myself on the railing. The basement was lit by a single bare bulb, just bright enough for me to see what was down there. 6 people, maybe 7, chained to the walls. Some looked like they'd been there for weeks, maybe months. They were thin, pale, covered in their own filth, but they were alive, and when they saw me, they started calling out. "Help us," one of them whispered. A young woman, maybe my age. "Please, help us get out of here." "Don't listen to them," the man said, coming down the stairs behind me. "They're just jealous because they know you're going to be the favorite for a while." I saw my chance when he reached for a chain hanging from the ceiling, probably meant for me. I spun around and punched him in the face as hard as I could. He stumbled backward, and I ran up the stairs 2 at a time. The apartment door was still open, thank God. I ran through it and down the hallway, not stopping until I reached the stairwell. I could hear him behind me, shouting and cursing, but I had a head start. I made it to my car and locked the doors, then called 911 with shaking hands. The police arrived within minutes, but when they searched the building, they found it empty. No man, no prisoners, no evidence that anyone had been there at all. But they did find something in the basement, scratch marks on the walls, old stains on the floor that tested positive for human blood, and 6 sets of chains bolted to the concrete. The building owner said the space had been rented 3 months ago by someone paying cash, but the name on the lease was fake. The investigation turned up records of 6 missing delivery drivers in the area over the past year. All of them had disappeared while making late-night deliveries, and none of them had ever been found. The police think my attacker had been using the fake apartment to lure drivers, then keeping them as prisoners until they died. They never caught him. For all I know, he's still out there, still ordering food from different apps, still collecting drivers like trophies. I quit Uber Eats that same night and got a job at a grocery store where I don't have to go anywhere alone. I moved to a different apartment and changed my phone number, but I still have nightmares about those people in the basement, and I can't help wondering if the police were right about them all being dead, or if some of them are still down there, waiting for someone to find them. Sometimes I drive past that warehouse district, even though I know I shouldn't. The building is still there, still mostly empty, but sometimes I see a light in one of the 3rd-floor windows, and I wonder if he's found a new place to set up. I thought I'd seen every kind of weird customer in my 8 months driving for Uber Eats. Drunk college kids, paranoid shut-ins, people who answer the door in their underwear, you name it. But nothing prepared me for the delivery request that came in on a rainy Thursday night in December. The order was from Chen's Garden, a Chinese place I'd picked up from dozens of times before. 2 entrees, fried rice, spring rolls, typical late-night comfort food order. The address was in Riverside Heights, a decent neighborhood where I'd never had any problems. But when I pulled up to the house, something felt off immediately. It was a small ranch-style home with a well-maintained yard and a 2-car garage, but every single window was covered with heavy curtains, and there were no lights visible anywhere. The front porch light wasn't even on, which made it hard to see the house numbers. I checked my phone to make sure I had the right address, then grabbed the bag and walked up to the front door. Before I could even knock, the door opened. The woman who answered was maybe 60 years old, short and thin, with gray hair pulled back and a messy ponytail. She was wearing a broth robe that had seen better days, and her feet were bare despite the cold weather. "You're late," she said. Though, according to my app, I was actually 5 minutes early. "Sorry about that," I said, holding out the bag. "One order from Chen's Garden?" She took the bag and looked inside, then frowned. "This isn't what I ordered." I pulled out my phone to check the order details. 2 beef and broccoli, 1 pork fried rice, 1 order of spring rolls. That's what's in the bag. "No," she said, shaking her head vigorously. "I ordered this special, the chef's special." I scrolled through the order again. There was no chef's special listed anywhere. "Ma'am, this is what the restaurant gave me. If there's been a mistake, you can call them directly or—" She interrupted. "You need to go back. Tell them Chen sent you. Tell them Mrs. Patterson needs her usual order. They'll know what that means." I was getting frustrated. It was late, it was raining, and I just wanted to finish this delivery and go home. Look, I can't go back to the restaurant without a new order being placed through the app. If you want to order something different, you'll need to... She grabbed my wrist suddenly, her fingers surprisingly strong. "You don't understand. I need my medicine. If I don't get my medicine, bad things happen." "Medicine?" I looked at the bag of Chinese food. "Ma'am, this is just food. If you need medication, you should call your doctor or..." Her grip tightened, and I could see her fingernails digging into my skin. "The special ingredients in the meat. Chen knows what I need." That's when I noticed her eyes. The pupils were completely dilated, black circles that seemed to swallow the light. And there was something else, a sweet chemical smell coming from inside the house, like cleaning products mixed with something organic and rotten. "I really need to go," I said, trying to pull away from her. "No," she said, her voice getting higher and more desperate. "You have to help me. If I don't get what I need, the hunger gets worse. And when the hunger gets worse, I do things, bad things." I managed to break free from her grip and backed away from the door. "Ma'am, I think you need to call someone, a family member or your doctor." She followed me down the porch steps, moving faster than someone her age should have been able to. "You can't leave. I need my medicine. Chen promised he would send it." I was almost to my car when she grabbed me again, this time by the shoulder. Her strength was unnatural. She spun me around like I weighed nothing. "Please," she said, and now I could see that her teeth were stained red. I haven't eaten in 3 days. Real food, the kind that screams. I shoved her away and ran for my car, but she was right behind me. As I fumbled with my keys, she started pounding on the driver's side window with both fists. "Come back," she screamed. "I need my delivery. I need my fresh meat." I got the car started and threw it in reverse, but she jumped on the hood. Her face was pressed against the windshield now, and I could see that her eyes weren't just dilated, they were completely black, like there were no irises at all. She started clawing at the glass, her fingernails leaving long scratches across the windshield. I hit the brakes hard, hoping she'd slide off, but she held on somehow. That's when I noticed the other people. They were coming out of the nearby houses, at least a dozen of them, all moving toward my car with the same jerky, unnatural gait. Men, women, even a few kids, all with those same black eyes and red-stained teeth. I floored the gas pedal, and Mrs. Patterson finally lost her grip and rolled off the hood. In my rearview mirror, I could see her getting up, apparently uninjured by the fall. She and the others stood in the middle of the street, watching me drive away. I called the police as soon as I was a safe distance away, but when they went to check on the house, they found it empty. The neighbors they talked to claimed they'd never heard of anyone named Patterson and said the house had been vacant for months. But I knew what I'd seen, and when I looked up the address later, I found some disturbing information. The house had belonged to an elderly couple named Frank and Margaret Patterson. They disappeared 6 months ago, along with several of their neighbors. The police investigation had turned up evidence of some kind of contamination in the local water supply, something that caused aggressive behavior and altered brain chemistry in the affected residents. The whole neighborhood had been evacuated and quarantined, but somehow the cleanup was incomplete. Some of the contaminated residents were still there, still living in those dark houses, still hungry for things that regular food couldn't satisfy. I tried calling Chin's Garden to ask about Mrs. Patterson and her usual order, but the restaurant had been closed for health code violations. According to the news reports, they had been serving meat that wasn't properly identified, meat that contained unknown chemicals and had caused several customers to become violently ill. I quit Uber Eats after that night and got a job at a bookstore where I don't have to drive anywhere after dark. But sometimes I still think about that neighborhood, wondering if Mrs. Patterson and the others are still there, still waiting for their next delivery. And I can't help but wonder about all the other drivers who might have gotten orders to that address, drivers who maybe weren't as lucky as I was. The police never found any bodies, but they also never found any of the missing residents. Sometimes I have nightmares where I'm back in that car with Mrs. Patterson clawing at my windshield, her black eyes reflecting the streetlights. But in the nightmares, I don't get away. In the nightmares, I become one of them, standing in that dark street, waiting for the next delivery driver to feed the hunger that never goes away.